when I had the very first psychedelic experience, and I all of a sudden felt so safe and so loved. A moment after that feeling, it was that realization that, oh my God, I don't feel safe and loved in my everyday life. And I forgot what feeling safe and loved felt like. That's the thing we're chasing. Like we are enough, and we just forget.
So, hey, Matt, how you doing today?
Mark, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. I want to take a second to introduce Matt to everyone. Matt is a co-founder of Take 2 Minutes. He helped me a lot on the onset of Take 2 Minutes and ongoing with Take 2 Minutes. He's helped a lot. But Matt has shifted his focus a little bit recently to an area that I get a lot of inquiries about, but Take 2 Minutes doesn't touch on as much, and that's psychedelics. Matt recently had a book released, and I think it was Psychedelics for Everyone. It was a beginner's guide to psychedelics, correct, Matt?
That is correct, yeah.
Good. So if you don't mind, why don't you talk about the book a little bit?
Sure. So I had a guided psilocybin or magic mushroom experience almost 4 years ago, and it changed my worldview. I had a reconnection with my mom who died when she was 49, and some pretty profound insights. And I wanted to learn more. Ended up going back to get a master's in psychology and neuroscience, and really diving into the research around psychedelic medicine. And I wanted to share that with readers in a way that was written for non-medical people. So anybody can read this book. There's some personal stories, there's an overview of psychedelics, and then there's 8 different psychedelic medicines and a deep dive into those, and people can pick and choose what they're interested in, but lots of accessible research and information for people.
Good. I talk about it often and Take 2 Minutes that there's no one thing that's for everyone, but that I think is the beauty of psychedelics and meditations and 3 good things exercises is if someone should be able to find something to help them ideally because there's options. So if somebody wants to venture down the path of psychedelics, I think there's maybe a misinformation that they're illegal. Is that the case, Matt? Is it obtainable by people?
It's both. So ketamine is a legal psychedelic available in all 50 states. So people with under a doctor's prescription can use ketamine, which is the only legal psychedelic right now. There are clinical studies with both MDMA and psilocybin. The FDA has given both of those what they call breakthrough therapy designation, and the results from those studies are pretty incredible. But for most Americans, the legal option in this country is ketamine. And then the second option would be flying to these other countries where things are legal and doing their medicine there. Just quickly then on the for everyone piece that you were touching on, I certainly don't mean everybody should do psychedelics. The point of the book was that psychedelics benefit society as a whole is my position. And when you read this, there's lots of reasons why for a number of people, psychedelics are really powerful. And so when people read this, it's not necessarily because they need to do psychedelics. It's to understand what's going on. But the work that Take 2 Minutes does ties right into it. I mean, psychedelics they're not a cure, it's a catalyst. And for me, at least, like my Take 2 Minute meditations have become much more profound after these experiences. It gives you something to point to in meditation.
No, that's good too. And I didn't mean that I was not trying to say they weren't for everyone. I was just commenting that there's no one thing for everyone, that it wasn't about the book at all. But with that, since I'm new to the idea of psychedelics, I think a lot of people are. You mentioned, I think I heard ketamine and I heard MDMA. Is that correct?
MDMA, correct. Yeah.
And then I also heard psilocybin. Did I get that one right?
Psilocybin, or most people know that as magic mushrooms.
Okay. So what's the difference in the 3 of those? So are they all mushrooms? Or are they different?
They're all different. So ketamine is a synthetic. It was actually developed as an anesthesia. It became legal in the United States in 1970. It is it's on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. And what they found is when it's not at an anesthetic dose, when it's a lesser dose, that it can really have tremendous effects on both depression and anxiety. And when people take ketamine, you can take it either at a clinic with IV or intravenous. You can do it intramuscularly with a shot. And then a number of people do it orally with a sublingual tablet. You stick under your tongue, you let it sit there for 12 minutes and spit it out. But it's about a 1 hour journey with ketamine. Psilocybin is the magic mushrooms. They grow all over the world, found in nature, all 50 states. There's lots of mushrooms in America. And then MDMA, again, is a synthetic. It was legal until the 80s. Class then scheduled not to be legal, but has had lots of results with treatment-resistant post-traumatic stress disorder is where most of the research is. So think about veterans, first responders, victims of sexual assault. Here's a cool stat, Mark. I know you like your stats. So for people who have treatment-resistant PTSD, nothing has worked. They've tried the different medications. They've tried talk therapy. Nothing's worked. 3 sessions with MDMA, 67% no longer qualify as having a PTSD diagnosis. And that's the phase 3 clinical trial results. So it's a tremendously strong and powerful, and it's giving hope to people who have been without hope for a while. It's a big change in mental health.
That's great. That's great. I still have a lot of questions. I'm trying to keep track of them in my head. So ketamine, we said legal in all 50 states. You mentioned the different ways of taking it. Is it legal for people to acquire at home, or do they have to go through a doctor?
You have to go through a prescriber. So in some states, it can be a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner. All states are doctors as well. And I really don't recommend people acquire ketamine on their own. So when you think about psychedelic medicines, one of the things that's really cool about them is they're non-addictive, with the exception of ketamine. Ketamine in animal studies has shown to have addictive potential, and there are cases in the recreational scene where ketamine has become addictive. There are no examples or no research that I have found where under doctor supervision that has happened. So I would caution people who are listening to this and hearing, oh, ketamine's great. They go to a party, they're offered ketamine, they take it. That's not the right way to take ketamine. It's really under a doctor's care with intentionality, and then the results can be tremendous at relatively low risk.
Good information. And then I've heard you mentioning microdosing. Can you talk about that and how that plays a part when using these?
Sure. Microdosing is certainly becoming more and more talked about these days. So a microdose is a sub-perceptual amount of whichever medicine. Most people either microdose with mushrooms or they microdose with LSD. So to think about like 1/10 or 1/20th of a regular dose. So when you're doing it correctly, you take it, you don't feel any differently. Like you can drive, you can work, you can converse, you can do everything you normally do. But somehow in your body, what it does is it turns up the blues, it turns down the grays, it helps people with creativity, it helps people with connection, reduces anxiety. There's some fantastic research about what microdosing can do. So it's become a good option for people who are resistant to doing a traditional antidepressant, but they want to do something, or they're exploring creativity and connection. But again, going back to where you started, it is illegal in the United States. So this is one of those things that we talk about in the interest of harm reduction, but it is illegal in the United States for microdosing either mushrooms or LSD.
So microdosing would not apply to ketamine going through your practitioner.
No, There are some groups that have talked about microdosing ketamine. There's actually a company that was. I don't see any research on microdosing ketamine, so I just don't know what the. I haven't seen any reasoning around why you would microdose ketamine.
Okay.
You wouldn't microdose MDMA either. That's not a microdose substance. Okay,
so good. The microdosing is mostly for psilocybin then,
or LSD. Yep.
Or LSD. Okay, good to know. Do you, and obviously you can't see the future, but from what you know, do you see legalization for some more of these happening in the future, possibly?
Yeah, that's really an exciting time. So just for perspective, there are 309 academic institutions studying psychedelics right now. So there's research coming out all the time on how powerful this medicine is and what it does for, when you think about how we get into these repetitive thought patterns and how those thought patterns manifest in different people. For some people, that's depression. For others, it's anxiety. For others, it's eating disorders. For others, it's OCD. For others, it's PTSD. For others, it's substance use challenges. So think about the variation. Research is showing again and again and again, psychedelics can help. MDMA has just finished their phase 3 clinical trials, and it's expected that will be legal nationwide within the next 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And then psilocybin is on the similar path, maybe a year, 2 years behind. And then meanwhile, we're seeing states jumping ahead and saying, well, wait a minute, we're not going to wait for the federal. So Colorado just did a ballot initiative, 122, and they decriminalized 5 different psychedelics while creating a framework for a state run or state monitored, I should say, medical psychedelic industry, where for adults 21 and over, there'll be ways to get prescribed access to psychedelic medicines, which is really, really cool. And Oregon did a similar initiative almost 2 years ago. And then different cities are passing decriminalization. So Ann Arbor, Michigan would be one, San Jose, California, Washington, D.C., a couple up in Massachusetts. It's really spreading across the country.
So similar to THC, some cities and states are legalizing some of these substances also. Correct. So you should check your local laws or jurisdictions to see what you can acquire.
Yeah, but yes and no. So yes, they are legalizing it for medical purposes, which many of the cannabis states did. There really isn't any talk about legalization for recreational purposes. And then there's decriminalization that would tie into either recreational or religious use, which is really interesting. And we think about people who believe this is a sacrament, who believe in the connection with God or spirit that they get from these medicines, that because it's not medical, that's technically recreational. Right. You could argue it's religious as well, but there's a whole, we can go down a rabbit hole on the Religious Freedom Act in this country, and that's challenging for people to take a religious stance on this.
Good. So in the areas that's helped by these, I heard you with obviously anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Are there other areas you like to focus?
Those are the 3 big ones, followed closely by OCD, eating disorders, and then substance use is right up there. I mean, the Johns Hopkins is doing really incredible research for like smokers, lifelong smokers, nothing's worked. And then all of a sudden after a psilocybin experience, they no longer smoke. I know for me personally, this is so weird. It wasn't an intention, but I have not had a drink of alcohol since my first psychedelic experience. All desire fell away. And it's just kind of wild. It's like, it's not something I was looking to achieve. It just happened. So I can only imagine if you went in with intentionality. There's a psychedelic medicine called ibogaine that comes from iboga, which is an African root, for opioid addiction, heroin. It is just showing incredible results. If I had a child who was struggling with that, I would find an ibogaine clinic in a country where that's legal, and really look into that. It's powerful medicine that it's one of the few things that's really working against the opioid crisis.
Very good. That's good to know. So if anyone wants to learn more about it, obviously they can look towards your book, which is available on Amazon. And I think you have it as an audiobook now as well.
Yeah. Anywhere books are sold, and the audiobook as well. So yeah.
Where else would you suggest they look to learn more?
They can come to my website, mattzemon.com, and there's a bunch of information there. There's a lot of different videos. And then I just encourage them as if they're looking for this information, reach out. I'm active on LinkedIn. Reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. I'm happy to be of service if I can.
Yeah, that's great. Reach out to Matt and ask questions about psychedelics if you have interest. So we were talking about Take 2 Minutes and how activities in Take 2 Minutes may be enhanced while using psychedelics or while trying psychedelics. And I might be wording things incorrectly, but how could you expand on that for the viewers?
Yeah, let me just sequence it a little bit differently. I believe when people do psychedelics, that's for one moment in time. So maybe we're going to do a 6-hour journey every once in a life for some people, once a quarter for others. What happens in between or after the psychedelic medicine is really, I think, where the healing and the transformation gets cemented. Okay. So we talk about psychedelics as a catalyst followed by integration work. I think Take 2 Minutes is a tremendous resource for integration work. They're all the exact same types of activities that we recommend to people that they do. So what would be some examples? Well, the 3 good things exercise, just taking a moment each day to say, oh, this was something that was great today, and this is why it was great. And writing that down, and that process, just reminding yourself of gratitude, reminding yourself of the gift of being alive, reminding yourself of what a beautiful time and how fortunate we are. It just helps. And study after study shows that when you do that, it transforms your life. It transforms the way you communicate with others, the way you relate to others, the way you look at others. So that's just one example.
Right. And we know you and I both talked in the past about how good 3 good things is on its own. And what you're saying is post journey on, for instance, ketamine, doing 3 good things could help you get into even a better place if you follow that practice and other practices, using, whether you use Take 2 Minutes or another resource, just doing things like 3 good things, meditation, and journaling after your journey continues to help you get into a better place.
Yeah. So what happens with psychedelics is what's called your default mode network, your ego, that narrator in your head that's constantly like, you're not good enough, you're not this is going to go wrong. All that monkey brain gets quieted. And when that gets quieted, different neurons start to fire at the same time. And those neurons are neurons that would have fired when you were a kid, but they haven't fired in a long time because we've got into different specific ways of thinking. And when those 2 things happen, all of a sudden, anxiety lifts, love wraps around you. You remember that you are enough, and that you are safe, and that there's an abundance around you. So then the trick is, so you have that feeling for however long this journey is. And then the trick is, how do you keep that going when you're not using the medicine? So 3 good things is a great example. Meditation, which you brought up. I mean, the ability with Take 2 Minutes to have meditation with the voice that you want, or the background. So that's personalized. But again, just to remind yourself of the awareness, to remind yourself of the gift of breathing, the gift of just being here. The self-worth that comes with that is tremendous. So yes, doing that afterwards. So you've got a visceral feeling of, this is what love and safety can feel like. And Take 2 Minutes can help remind you of that day after day after day. I like the gratitude list as well. Just every now and again, oh, wow, I forgot. Let me, these are things I'm thankful for. Let me add it to the list. Let me review my list. The random acts of kindness, just remind me to go out and do something, or the letter is sending a letter to someone that's me, whether you actually mail it or not, just writing the letter about what an impact you've made in my life. And I'm grateful and thank you. And I love you. That has tremendous results and can remind you of that psychedelic experience.
I love the phrase you use, love wraps around you while on your journey. I guess is that a feeling you experienced possibly?
Absolutely. I mean, what was wild to me, Mark, and we've known each other a long time. When I had the very first psychedelic experience, and I all of a sudden felt so safe and so loved, a moment after that feeling, it was that realization that, oh my God, I don't feel safe and loved in my everyday life. And I forgot what feeling safe and loved felt like. And that was such a, what am I doing? What's going on? How am I living my life? Feeling. Yeah, really powerful. And that's the thing we're chasing. Like we are enough, and we just forget. There's an example that we talk about in this community about how easy it is to forget that life is a game, and that we were born enough, we're going to end enough. And it's about playing games with your family. And how many times have we played a game and it gets competitive, and we get angry, and it's just a board game.
Right.
So if we can go from this family activity to anger and emotion in a board game, how easy is it to do with our everyday life, with work, with relationships, with all of that? Super easy.
That's great.
Yeah.
And feeling safe and loved is, I think, a feeling. And I never want to try to act like I know what other people are feeling, but I have some confidence that if more people felt that, there would be less depression and anxiety. in
course.
individuals.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a culture that is grooming us to be productive members and that starts from, we're told at a very early age, no, you can't think this way. No, it's not time to play. It's time to do this. And that your instinct of what you want to do isn't right. And we live in a culture where, I don't know how far to go with this, but we live in a culture where it's like, we know there are nuclear weapons pointed at us at all times, but we don't talk about it. But we know it at some level, and we know there's climate change, and we know there's a lot of stuff happening that, yeah, would lead us not to feel safe. I don't know in this younger generation. I mean, how do they afford a house?
Right.
How do they afford the neighborhoods that we live in? So I think we're seeing a change, a shift, and it's going to be beautiful, but it's going to be different. They're not going to eat the same kinds of foods because some of the animals will be extinct. They're not going to live in the same types of houses because they can't. So they're going to have to create a different type of society to work. But all of that, if people feel loved and safe and can share love and safety, and we can get back to that core value, what a beautiful place to live. And not I've got to go to work. I have to earn this money. I have to save this much for retirement. I'm scared. No, there's enough for everybody right now. We're just not, we're not thinking about it that way. We're prioritizing differently.
I think scared is a good word also, that a lot of people feel just for different reasons, but that can bring on more anxiety and depression, just that feeling of scared, which is not necessarily the opposite. But again, going back to the love and safety, the feeling of love and safety could help overcome that. If you feel the love and safety, you're not going to feel as scared then. So that's an improvement. I love the idea of love and safety and wrapping love around you. Again, you said that on the earlier. So those are both good phrases and good things to keep in mind to work towards for people.
Well, and what's lovely about this as a concept, which I know that's every activity in Take 2 Minutes is about this, is that this is internal. What's so beautiful about this is the love and safety is inside all of us. And when we unleash that, we are no longer dependent on anything on the outside for our happiness. It's 100% inside.
Right.
And that's awesome.
I try to personally plug Take 2 Minutes much during these talks, but I will say, and you know her as well, we had one person doing meditations, Marissa Iman, and I think I really always thoroughly enjoyed her meditations because you almost just felt love and safety listening to her quite often. I think her meditations are still beautiful. And she did anxiety ones for us, and she did just standard meditations and daily meditations, but she just had a personality and a persona that made you feel safe and loved while listening to her, I think.
Without a doubt. I mean, I'm going to flip that back on you. You manifested her, and you found this person who has this beautiful energy and really cares about changing the world and creating beauty in the world. And then you were able to work with her to find a way to do that with this little nonprofit and to get that quality of experience available, and then find a way to record it, find a way to get it out there, find a way to make that happen on both on demand and automatically into people's lives. And that's a gift, and that's something you should be proud about.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So we're getting close to time. I know that everyone should still check out Matt's book. Again, Psychedelics for Everyone, available on Amazon. There'll be a link below our talk here. Any closing notes about this topic you want to touch on?
No, I'm just, I don't tell you enough how grateful I am that this exists, that this is, I mean, there's a number of different services out there, and people come at things for different reasons. But your intentionality of when this all started, I want to help my son feel more safe and loved, to then, his friends would like some of this, to, these other people I don't know would like some of this. And now all of a sudden, we've got thousands of members across countries who are, and you've made it work. You've made it work with, we're so grateful for the people who sign up and do the memberships, because it allows us to keep the lights on. And then you had some gifts from some companies that have come in, and what a difference when those things happen, that it's not, but you funded this day after day to make this work. And I'm just grateful, Mark. So thank you.
Thank you for that. It makes me feel really good. I appreciate those words. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on today. This was wonderful.
I appreciate your time again. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for listening. I hope you found that discussion helpful and interesting. If there are any topics you would like to hear discussed, head over to take2minutes.org and use the Contact Us form to submit your suggestions. Also, if you appreciate our content, sign up for an account at take2minutes.org. Subscriptions help us to continue generating new content. Thanks again.